Good day, everyone. I'm Maria Grace Drake Wizon.
And I am Fallen Leora.
We're going to present Jerome Bruner's theory.
Jerome Seymour Bruner was an American psychologist who made significant contributions to human cognitive psychology and cognitive learning theory in educational psychology. Bruner was a senior research fellow at the New York University School of Law. He was invented the Jerome Bruner's theory of learning. Constructivism is all about the knowledge and ideas of the human. Bruner's main concept, representation, is a concept of Bruner that teachers should teach with active process and visual aids for effective learning. An active presentation is a common example of this is a baby. A baby learns according to action and movement of your mouth since they cannot move or talk in their own. Iconic representation is a method of teaching where you use certain objects to represent their discussion. Like for example, if your topic is about the different countries, then you will use a globe to show the different countries in the world since you will be traveling with your imagination rather. Symbolic representation. This is when the learner learns to create her own. Spiral curriculum. Teacher should step down to the knowledge of the student in teaching for effective learning. Discovering learning. Best example of this are the philosophers. They are the people who love to study and focus on things on their own and make it a theory. Instruction should be easily grasped and can be followed easily. It should serve as the guide for the student. Four major aspects of theory instruction. Predisposition to learn. So, this kind of theory believes that any subject should be taught at any stage that fits the cognitive abilities. Structure of knowledge. So, this is the part where the knowledge should be structured according to the cognitive level of the child so it can be easily understood. Effective sequencing. The best sequencing for a lesson is from decrease to increase difficulty level. Reinforcement. In this theory, reinforcement is the talks about rewards and punishment is be based appropriately. The student's interest towards the subject is the best tool for effective learning. So, external competition is not a healthy way of learning.
Categorization. Bruners gave much attention to categorization of information in the construct of internal connective maps. He believed that perception, conceptualization, learning, decision-making, and making inferences involve categorization. Kinds of categorization. Identity category is object based on their attribute on their features. Equivalent categories is consists of factor between the involved categories. Coding systems is used to present letters or numbers in transmitting messages. From Bruner, learners are encouraged to discover facts and relationships for themselves. Information processing theory. Information processing theory is cognitive theoretical framework that focuses on knowledge, enters and it's stored in and retrieved from our memory. It is one of the most significant cognitive theories in the last century, and it has strong implications on the teaching learning process. IPT describes how how the learner receives information or stimuli from the environment through the sense of the what takes place in between determines whether the information will continue to pass through the sensory register, then the short-term memory and the long-term memory. These two are the same because this shows information enters and being restored in the mind. Information process theory. This is the part where the student can be identified as fast learner or slow learner. This theory shows fast the mind can understand.
Types of knowledge: general versus specific, declarative, procedural, episodic, and conditional. Difference of general and specific. General is a broad, while specific focusing on one. Declarative. It is a factual. The President of the Philippines is Rodrigo Duterte. It is the answer of the questions: who is the President of the Philippines? Procedural. You will take a proper procedure before you can write an essay. Episodic is a memory that you can't forget since in your childhood days. Conditional. Example, using the different strategies in different situations. Three main stage in memory process. Sensory register is the first step in the IP model, holds all sensory information for a very brief time. Example, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Capacity is our mind receives a great amount of information, but it is more than what our mind can hold or perceive. Duration 1 to 3 seconds only, which means if you really don't understand what's the instruction, in 1 to 3 seconds you will easily forget it. The role of attention is to preserve knowledge on your mind, because if we fail to preserve knowledge on our mindset, we have no means by recognize that our mind has ever encountered. Short-term memory. Short-term memory means the capacity of the brain of some people can only hold 5 to 9 chunks of information with duration of around 18 seconds or else. To reduce losing some information, you have to review. This short term, when you're having a problem, is remembering, or you can easily forget the informations. Long-term memory. Some people have long-term memory that they tend to remember things for a long period of time until it's needed again. This is the part of a process on how the information is being stored in the mind through the system. This helps the learner to make decisions on how to organize and interpret informations. According to Alison Motlock, executive control is the ability to carry out goal-directed behavior using complex mental process and cognitive abilities. Forgetting. It is the inability to retrieve or access information when needed. This is when you forget the information that you needed. Two main ways in which forgetting occurs. Decay. Information is not attended to and eventually fades away. Interference. New or old information blocks access to the information in question. Methods for retrieval of information. Rehearsal. Repeating information. Meaningful learning. Making connection between new informations and prior knowledge. Organization. Making connection among various pieces of information. Elaboration. Connecting new information with old to gain meaning. Visual imagery. Forming a picture of the information. Generation. Things we produce are easier to remember than things we hear. Context. Remember the situation. Personalization. Making the information relevant to the individual. Other memory methods. Serial position effect. Remember the beginning and the end of list more readily. Part learning. Chunk information. Distributed practice. Breaking up learning session, then cramming all the information at once. Mnemonic aids. Memory techniques. Executive control process, including metacognition. Sensory memory. Perception, short-term memory. Perception, long-term memory. Decay is also part of sensory memory. Forgetting is also part of short-term memory. Also maintenance rehearsal. While retrieval is part in long-term memory. Also rehearsal, elaboration, meaningful learning, organization, visual imagery, and generalization is also part in long-term memory. Learning theories and their application to classroom and school practices. In the classroom settings, teachers are said to reinforce the kind of behavior they want to see through praise, smile, marks, rewards, and the like since the typical classroom situation. A teacher cannot supply reinforcement quickly enough or often enough. Skinner introduced program learning. So, example of this is expectation versus reality.
Program learning is a system of learning in which pre-established subject matter is broken down into sequential steps. The learner is immediately reinforced after each step as soon as he makes the correct response. The emphasis on cognition and insight cognitive field theories has far-reaching implication for the present-day classroom, school, and practices. It implies that the teacher has to select and provide appropriate learning experience whereby the learners can be discover relationship between elements in various situations and understand them as a whole in one organized and tell pattern. Applied to classroom situation in general, the field theories imply the need for emphasis on looking at the total situation at the beginning. This is accomplished by having learners discussion both the immediate and ultimate goals of learning. The teacher has to preview the activities involved in the problems to be counted. For example, on primary reading, the teacher should tell briefly what the story is about, describe the characteristic, and relate the story to the pupil experience. At the high school level, instead of introducing the study of chemistry by detailed analysis of a given element, the teacher must first discuss the operation in chemistry in daily living, the overall field, and the problems to be encountered. Although these theories emphasize the place of generalities in introducing any subject area, emphasis is also made on the details which are suspect of the large area. The teaching of world analysis and phonetics is subsidiary to the importance of giving the idea. Word analysis and phonetics are significant as they contribute to better understanding. Teachers know that there are many pupils who can read the word but fail to grasp their meaning. The interest of cognitive field theories is developing reflective thinking in place, setting up school programs that are focused in teaching students to think effectively in a wide variety of situations. It implies teaching approach which are child-centered as well as problem-centered. This calls for teachers who understand the nature of the learner and the perceive the learner's life space, one who advocates greater learner participation, one who plans, executes, and evaluates learning tasks in problem-centered math.
Transfer of learning happens when learning in one context or with one set of materials affects performance in another context with other related materials. Simply put, it is applying to another situation what was previously learned. It happens when learning ends. Types of transfer. Positive transfer. It occurs when in one's context improves performance in some other context. Negative transfer. It occurs when learning in one context impacts negatively on performance in another. Near transfer. It refers to transfer between very similar contexts, referred to as specific transfer. Far transfer, also called general transfer, refers to transfer between contexts that on appearance seem remote and aligned to one another. Conditions and principle of transfer. Condition and factors affecting transfer of learning. Similarity between two learning situations. Degree of meaningfulness and relevance of learning. Length of instructional. Principle of learning. The more similar the two situations are, the greater the chances that learning from one situation will be transferred to the other situation. Meaningful learning leads to greater transfer than rote learning. The longer the time spent in instructions, the greater the probability to transfer. Implication. Involves students in learning situations and tasks that are similar as possible to the situation where they would apply the task. Remember to provide opportunities for learners to link new material to what they learned in the past. To ensure transfer, teach a few topics in depth rather than many topics tackled in a shallow manners. So, variety of learning experience. Context for learners. Experience. Focus on the principle rather than task. Emphasis on metacognition. Exposure of many varied examples and opportunities for practice encourage transfers. Transfer of learning is most likely to happen when learners discover that what they learned is applicable to various contexts. Principle transfer is easier than facts. Student reflection improves transfer of learning. Illustrate a new concept and principle with a variety of examples. Plan. Relate a topic in one subject to a topic in other subjects or disciplines. Relate it also to a real situation. Zero is on principles related to each topic together with strategies based on those principles. Encourage students to take responsibility for their own learning and to reflect on the way what they learn. Thank you and God bless.